What's up, YouTube? We've been getting a lot of requests from customers who have situations where they might damage one of their rod guides. So in today's video, we're gonna watch Vince show you how to do an at-home do-it-yourself repair on your rod guide. Check it out. We know the average person at home does not have a setup to repair a rod. So what you'll see here is Vince actually creating a jig or a base to hold the rod as he repairs it. Everyone should have a box at home, so this should work for you. You can see here, we're just on a workbench downstairs that Vince uses for fishing stuff. We've got an Amazon box. We've also got a back end support box that's just creating this rod to be level. And Vince has cut out notches for the rod to sit in so he's able to rotate the rod once he's finishing the thread at the end. Vince is going to use a Dremel style tool to remove the guide.
The shininess means that's the guide foot. You just want the whole guide foot shiny. You don't want to hit the blank. And when it's all shiny, pop it off. Just like that.
So once you've got the guide off, now what you need to do is remove the old threading and the old epoxy from around the rod. This is prepping the rod to place the new guide on.
Yep,
now you'll see it'll come off fairly easily. We'll finish removing the rest of that, and then we'll prep the blank to put the new guide on the rod.
That's coming off good.
All right, guys, so once you come down to where you have the blank ready, you've removed the guide, what you're gonna do is use either a rubbing alcohol or an acetone, and you're just gonna prep the blank and remove any old residue so that you're ready to start fresh. Now we'll use some hot melt glue. We'll go ahead and warm it up so we can stick the guide to the blank.
Next step, you want to heat up your guide foot. So just heat it up a little bit, just like that. Take your adhesive, rub it on there, just like that. And now that your rod is where it should kind of be, this will be hot. So just kind of let it cool. And when it's cool, push your fingers down.
All right, guys, so Vince is prepping right now to go ahead and get this put on. You know, we're shooting this video to try to make sure that the average person at home in their basement can put together these things and get it done. So we've actually did some innovating here to try to make sure we can do it. So Vince pours some lead jigs. So we needed to have something that would place tension on the thread. So we just ran the thread under this container that creates the weight, and then Vince can bring it up here, and as he's wrapping, it will create tension and allow him to wrap it the way it should be. So you guys can see here what Vince did was created an anchor point for his thread. It's really just a starting point, and it allows him to be able to start at the bottom and work his way up through the guide foot to complete the wrapping job. Now Vince created a thread loop and he's just putting it on there. This thread loop is going to be used to pull the thread back through after he gets done doing the wrap. So what Vince did was took his thread and passed it down back through the loop that he created, and you'll see later why he did this.
Ready?
Yep. All right, so that way he was able to pull the tag end of his thread back up towards the guide. And now he has a good setup to go ahead and start overlaying his thread to secure the guide to the blank of the rod. Here Vince is simply trimming the tag end of his thread. Now the key to this is just making sure that you're basically, it's kind of like coloring your kid, staying inside the lines. Well, here you're just going line by line, laying the thread on top of each other all the way along the line. You're going to continue wrapping about 7/8 of the way up the guide foot. Now I'm going to utilize this thread with the loop again. You can see where he's placing it there. See now he's placing a few wraps over it.
Just cut it.
Vince is now taking the tag end of his wrapping thread and passing it through the loop so that he can pull it back through under the wraps.
Just through the loop, grab tag, pull.
And now what that did is it pulled that tag end back through the wraps. All right, guys, you can see Vince has now finished doing the wraps up the foot of the guide. Now you'll see there's some slight gapping. This is not a professional rod wrapping job. Obviously, you're doing this at your home without ideal conditions, without all the equipment to do so. But as long as you have this secure like this, you're gonna be in really good shape for your new guide. Now the next step is to try to look down the guides of the rod and make sure that you've placed that guide in place. It's not cemented yet, so we still have the ability to make adjustments.
Just a little bit.
So you can see it's pretty easy to tweak it. All he's doing is wrapping his hand around the guide and then putting his hand around the handle and just making slight tweaks until the guides all line up perfectly.
And it's perfect.
Now that our guide is properly in place, it's time to use a 2-part epoxy to permanently affix it to the blank. Now what is this first liquid that you're putting in here, Vince?
0.5 cc is even too much.
Okay.
But it'll work for this. This is the hardener.
Okay. So by combining the resin with the hardener, you're basically making like a flexible epoxy to go on the rod.
You're completing the chain reaction of chemicals. This you want to mix for like 30-40 seconds.
So normally, guys, what you would have here is some sort of a wrapping motor. So I'm gonna try to twist this with my hand as Vince is applying this epoxy. And I'm trying to keep a nice, smooth, uniform rotation. So as he's putting this epoxy on, it's not too thick, not too thin. And again, this is set up for an at-home scenario where we know you don't have a rod wrapping station or a motor or anything like that. So you just want to make sure that you're maybe having a friend help you out with this and spinning the guide, spinning the rod around. That's going to allow you to be able to uniformly apply this epoxy on top of the thread. So in an ideal situation, if you were doing this repair, you would have a mechanism or a motor that would rotate this as it dried, so you'd have a perfect uniform drying process. We don't have that, so we're doing the best we can with what we have at home, which obviously is what you're going to do as well if you're doing a DIY situation. It's on the inside of the foot of the guide there, just to help epoxy it to the blank and give you a little bit more security for that guide. So you can apply just a little bit of heat and it'll kind of help cure this epoxy a little bit quicker. But right now what I'm doing is I'm just rotating this blank. You don't have to do this for a terribly long time. Again, ideally you'd have something rotating this. Now you guys can see this is the end product of a DIY at-home rod guide repair. You can see the epoxy is smoothed out really well. And again, this is without the normal equipment you would use to do the job. If you have any questions, make sure you leave a comment below and we'll be happy to help. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button. Head on over, check us out on Instagram, and hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. We'll see you on the water next time.